Have you got about 20 minutes? Do you fancy hopping over the channel and spending the weekend with me in Belgium? Hello there, I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. A few weeks ago, I took a coach trip to Belgium to go and visit the International Flower Festival at Oldenbeessen, which is called Fleuramour. I've wanted to do this for about 20 years and finally everything was aligned, and I was lucky enough that one of the flower clubs I belong to was organising a coach trip. So come with me and I'll show you the fantastic garden centre we stopped off on the way, a little montage of clips from the flower festival itself, and then our trip to the botanical gardens just outside Belgium. Have you got your bags packed, your passport and your foreign currency? Well, let's go. Before we get across to mainland Europe and arrive in France, I thought you'd like to see how we got on to Le Shuttle, which is the vehicle train that takes you underneath the English Channel across from the United Kingdom through to mainland Europe. I thought in particular those of my viewers who are watching in the United States would be interested in seeing this, as you may not have taken this journey yourself. This is the nerve-wracking moment when the coach pulls onto the open-sided train and almost seems to drive off right across the other side. So we end up driving into the carriage itself. It's a really tight squeeze. And unlike when you go across on the ferry, you don't get out of the coach, you just sit there and wait, and the journey takes about half an hour. And here we are, miraculously, in France, unloading and getting ready to join the motorway across France as we head out into Belgium. It's been a long time since I've been abroad, of course, with COVID and the pandemic, but what always intrigues me are the different street signs, the different style of houses. And we've arrived at our first stop. This is the Thomas Home and Garden Inspiration Garden Centre in the tiny village of Hazlet. Visiting the garden centre was just a mind-blowing experience. We had about an hour and a half here, and I just wish we could have stayed even longer. We arrived on a Friday afternoon and the florist section was particularly well stocked, so I don't know whether that's because the people of Belgium really enjoy having cut flowers at home, or whether it was because it was a Friday and people were buying flowers for the weekend. And there were a mix of arrangements which were pre-made, or you could have selected flowers by stems from the individual buckets. So I'm sure you'll recognise lots of the blooms here. Fountain grass, lovely autumn colours, just absolutely amazing. I love these containers like cheese boxes or hat boxes, the hydrangeas and the sunflowers of late summer, and the gorgeous purple hydrangeas off to the side. So literally every single walkway had these flower arrangements made up, just ready to go. And interspersed between there were loads and loads of display shelves with fabulous vases. I was so tempted, but of course on a coach trip I didn't want to be carrying anything breakable home with me. These arrangements here were displayed in these huge baskets, so that's part and parcel of the whole arrangement. You just pick up the whole lot and then go and pay for it. Beautiful delphiniums, and then loads of the really deep autumn colours. So again, some grasses here, the red roses, the spikes I think are amaranthus, so they're the upright variety rather than the trailing. And I think that price there was €19.95, obviously, but with the exchange rate, which was very bad at the time, plus the international exchange rate fee, probably equivalent to £19.95. The waxy anthuriums in the peach, white and green, and then these are the bundles, the wraps of fresh flowers. So we've got the pink snapdragons or antirrhinums. I think that might be pink bouvardia next door. And these lilies just didn't look real, and I think they're priced at €1.20. And as the camera pans round, we have a look at these gerbers, a really fancy variety with really fluffy petals. They almost look like chrysanthemums, or certainly those pink ones do. The quality of the flowers was just absolutely amazing. And I think if you're not used to going to a wholesaler, it's probably something you don't ever really appreciate, how crisp and fresh the flowers are. And do you reckon that's broccoli down there? Well, it's not. It is sprayed sedum heads. What a fantastic idea. And then we're back to the fiery colours of autumn. In the basket at the top, it was dyed asparagus fern, and then we dropped down to the pinhead proteas, and then across this side here are much more meadows style arrangements. And I will say that every single arrangement was made in flower foam, which these days isn't quite as acceptable to the customer, or certainly not here in the UK. These little hat box designs, very compact arrangement, and I think that says £24.95 on that price level. Just everywhere you went, things were quite colour coordinated. So this little yellow section styled with a mirror behind, so you get a glimpse of the glassware on the other side of the shop. And these are a display of hundreds and hundreds of glass and ceramic vases. Just so much to see. It was literally like going into a sweet shop when you were a child. Another pre-made bouquet with the curly celosia there. Looks like orange brains. And these ones are certainly put into these carry bags. So you'd pick up the black straps and then you'd have your arrangement in the little bag to take home with you. Again, more glassware, more of those autumn tones. I particularly love the colours that were put together, the sharp oranges with the dark purples and burgundies, and just a little bit of white there with the feverfew, some dyed heads of dried flowers added in too, some exotics with the pinhead protea, and those wild rose hips, just adding a really delicate look to the much heavier and firmer looking flowers. Being able to wander around this florist shop was just so inspiring. Just the variety of plant materials, the colour combinations, it was really amazing. And as I spot this, I'm just noticing there are some arrangements that aren't in flower foam. Those stems of ready-made bouquets with the glass vase included will be all set to go. These are the glass vases I was quite interested in. I thought they were a very usable shape, quite low with a quite wide mouth, so you could get loads and loads of flowers inside. And then walking up the aisles as well, being really careful where you walked because you didn't want to knock anything over. But just look at that. Imagine if you lived in Belgium, I reckon you'd be at this garden centre every Friday night buying your weekend flowers. This arrangement here is that £38.90? Absolutely glorious. I'm just not sure whether I'd want to spend that amount of money though on my flowers, but probably these would last a good 2 weeks at home. And of course with those hydrangeas you might even be able to whip them out and dry them to keep them even longer. I thought these arrangements had quite a autumn Halloweeny tinge. I guess it's the orange gerbera with the black head and then the black ties on the carry bags there. And then across to the sundries aisle. Always so interesting seeing what other people use for their flower arrangements. So again, really flower foam heavy, but notice how that thin layer of plastic at the bottom, that's much shallower than the traditional oasis forms that we use here in the UK. All sorts of beads, and there's some beautiful coloured wires as well on little spools. So this is what we call the reel wire, the wire that's on a reel, R-E-E-L. Lovely vibrant colours there. And then the round coils of aluminium wire, the more functional wires, the black, the grey and the green there. There was just so much to look at. And then the dried sundries off to one side, all colour coordinated again. It really was like little bags of sweets hanging up. So we moved from the browns to the oranges, off to the reds. And then I noticed that the European designers do seem to use a lot of the polystyrene frames as well. So although they might not use flower foam, it does have this, unnatural, this polystyrene plasticky base to lots of the arrangements. And then we go into the garden centre proper, which was this huge, light, airy greenhouse. Gorgeous candles here, really autumnal Christmas colours. I didn't buy any, but my friend did. And then we hit the visit just at the right time because the Christmas shop was being set up. This was absolutely gorgeous. I particularly liked the colourful Christmas trees, but also I quite like that pared back look for Christmas. These tiny little Christmas trees that have been flocked and inserted into a log of wood. The white houses, imagine candlelight there, creating your own little Christmas village. And the Christmas village here was just amazing. This reminds me of the garden centre near my dad's house, and just something I would never have at home, but I really enjoyed watching this, looking around it. And of course we're in Belgium, it's flat, we're near Holland, and there are the windmills. I was quite interested in how the products had been styled and just looking really and thinking, how could I style my Christmas ornaments when I get home? So the little collection of Christmas houses, you know, a little bit of the woodware behind, but it's always got a little bit of green with it. Here these are trailing artificial plants, and of course the Christmas trees are artificial too, but I think everything has loads of impact when it's blocked or grouped together. And of course it wouldn't be Christmas without a little bit of faux flower and greenery. And then the sharp red berries. I was particularly drawn to this. I think I got rid of some red berries like this. I thought they'd had their day, but if only I kept hold of them, I could have massed them into a container rather than trying to use them as individual stems in a flower arrangement or on a door wreath. I always like to buy a Christmas decoration when I go away, so this was €2.50. Quite a Scandi looking star that fits into the theme for my Christmas. And then buckets and buckets of flower picks. I'm not quite sure whether these were waiting to be put onto the shop floor or that was how they were being displayed, but nevertheless grouped together and really eye-catching. These frosted red berries here, piles and piles of green bundles. So they were picks again. You would have picked the pick out of that bundle as if you were picking it from a hedge. And quite lifelike greenery there with the red and green berries. And then these wicker wreaths, I find these quite hard to arrange with, but I think they do make quite a statement undecorated on their own, but they were quite pricey. $52.15, that's an awful lot of money to spend. And my eye was drawn to these little compote bowls with the hobnail detail on them. I may have put one of those in my bag. $8.20. Lovely Christmas trees again. I really like this idea of bringing nature indoors. So although it might be a fake Christmas tree, I have got, bottle brush trees. I like to do little groupings of those just to give that little Christmas scene in my houses and my Christmas trees is the sort of natural look I'm going for. Or perhaps you might like traditional red or green with these nutcrackers. As you can see as I pan around, there is just so much to look at. Lots of faux florals as well, absolutely gorgeous. These lovely soft pinks with a little bit of bronze in them. Wouldn't it be lovely just to go in and buy armfuls of these to enjoy at home? And look at that huge pomander made with fake roses, I hasten to add, but it does have a little string tie at the top as if it's a huge Christmas bauble. Has anything grabbed your attention so far? If you spotted anything you would have bought, let me know in the comments. It's like a little Aladdin's cave here. So here we're going into the sort of more gold-toned area, perhaps a bit of a boho look with the basketware. A little bird cage off to the side there in wicker. I'm heading to the gold glittery stuff. There were lots of fake fir throws. Black poppies off to the side. These have been sprayed. And these beautiful fake flowers. They looked so good. They actually looked like dried roses. When you picked up each individual bunch, they were a little bit small. So again, I think you would have to have bought 2, 3, 4 or 5 of them and really massed them together for maximum impact. And some more Christmas pics here. Some little bronzed branches that have been flocked with snow. And they would look lovely pushed into your natural green Christmas tree, or perhaps if you have a fake tree, to add them in for a little bit of contrast instead of using tinsel. A walkway here giving you an overview of the whole garden centre. So it does have the traditional plants in. It wasn't just all Christmas things. I was quite intrigued by this concrete block with the little holes in it. It's very similar to something we made in Zoom flower class last year. And I reckon it's there to put your dried flowers in, so you make a little meadow of sparsely spaced dried flower stems. A pebble. Quite like that idea. You could do it with air-dry clay. And then just behind me were all the dried florals. So you could pick up your base, your container on one side of the aisle, and then select from the colour-themed drieds what you'd like to display. Pink teasel here. I don't get on with teasel. I find it too prickly to work with. The beautiful helichrysum flowers, the straw flowers. And I rather like the look of this container, $32.95. Imagine that with some scrunched up chicken wire taped in place, and you can make a beautiful foam-free design. So it was the end of September we visited, autumn season, loads and loads of these decorative pumpkins or gourds. I think this one is called Munchkin Pumpkin, and you can buy them, well, certainly here in the UK, in your local supermarket. Or perhaps you might want to say no to orange and go white this year with your autumn display. The Chinese lanterns, more gourds, a really lovely glaucous colour there to the green. Now let's skip to the following morning, and here we are arriving at Alden Beeson, which is the venue for the flower festival, which is called Fleuramour. Beautiful display there with the yellow spider's web. This next clip is a photo montage of our day, so I'll just let it roll through and you can get a little look at the type of arrangements we were looking at. It was a really immersive experience. To begin with, you didn't quite know where to go, but you could tell I was with a load of flower-loving fans. We were taking in the displays from the front, we were all looking at the back, we were trying to work out how the mechanics were put together. Some arrangements were quite obviously made in flower foam, some of them were using big boards where flowers had been pinned onto them. Cable ties were used quite a lot. There were arrangements in fresh water too, a real selection of things to look at. And almost, I would say, if you go, you need to have one day going crazy with your camera and taking pictures of everything. And then I think you probably need a second day at the festival, just so you can really take everything on board and look at things instead of looking at it all behind your camera. So do you remember the sprayed broccoli I thought we'd seen at the garden centre? That actually was purple broccoli rather than the green sprayed sedum. And then into the house, table settings using fake flowers. It's quite unusual to see the mix of fresh and fake together. And just a riot, a total riot of colour. Beautiful illuminations, really showing off the flower displays as if they were works of art. And taking the opportunity to get up really close as well, to look at the individual detail of all the arrangements. And you had plenty of time to do this. It was quite crowded, but you could just let the crowds ebb and flow, and you had plenty of time to look at the arrangements in peace if you wanted to get really up close to them. This was my favourite room in one of the rounded turrets. They also had some amazing wallpaper in the castle as well. Really great backdrop to the displays. And then there was a little art gallery area with the arrangements picking up on or being inspired by the works of art behind. It was literally like walking through the pages of your favourite flower arranging magazine. And I think the thing that differentiates the British style of flower arranging with the European style is this massing of elements. And of course this isn't any ordinary flower festival. These are the equivalent, I would say, of going to an art gallery. These are masters of their craft, of their art. And it's a really high level style of flower arranging. But I'm sure there'll be little bits and pieces that will inspire you, colour combinations or particular techniques that you want to explore and practice at home. These were Lisianthus, a single Lisianthus looking really like a rose, and toast. Who doesn't put toast in all their flower arrangements? And sadly, that was the end of the flower festival. Lots to think about and lots to enjoy. And then on the way home the following day, we stopped off at the Botanical Gardens at Meis, which is just outside Belgium. And this was absolutely glorious. Really nice to be out in the open air on a fresh autumn morning. And we even saw some red squirrels. There, can you see? Just there, by the tree. I think we were here for a couple of hours, and again it just wasn't long enough, but perhaps I'll just have to come back and visit again next year. So this was the large greenhouse that we went into, and this lovely what appears to be stained glass hanging on the side was actually made from fabric. And while we were there seemed to be some sort of artist trail, so there were lots of sculptures that you could go around and look at. But I was quite interested in seeing all the exotic greenery we get used to seeing in flower arrangements growing in what would be the natural habitat. And boy, was it warm in this particular glass house. We had to take our coats off. And we were able to climb up to a higher level in the greenhouse and really get up into the sort of treetops of the jungle. You might recognise some flowers here. Greenery, I think these are the bromeliads. And there's the walkway. It did feel like we were abroad, and of course we were. Felt like we were in a tropical country. Cheese plants. There's huge glossy leaves. And the thing probably for the weekend, if you were going to visit, I would just don't overdo it. Don't overpace yourself. Just try and go quite a measured pace so you really enjoy what you're looking at rather than desperately ticking off every single thing on your list. This was quite a nicely calming experience after the hustle and bustle of the flower festival the day before. Beautiful, delicate flowers. It almost looks like a country style flower in that soft pink against all the tropicals. And this, I think it was a stag's head fern. It looks like antlers on the leaf shape. And these little scales here. Now I think we saw dried versions of that being used in some of the flower arrangements that we'd seen at the festival. All the time we were sort of making these linkages between what we'd seen here and what had been used there. It really was a fabulous learning experience, as well as being a lovely holiday, a weekend away. And look at this. Not often you get invited to touch things when you go to a public area. But I think this was a mimosa, and when you touch the leaves, they folded up. Very soothing to watch. Yes, it was a mimosa. Touch me. And this is a hibiscus. Recently, over the summer, I bought some dried hibiscus to make myself a herbal tea, which I made up as actually an iced tea. It's so hot, wasn't it, this summer? As hot as it was in that greenhouse. A beautiful flower. And look at that tendril. I can't remember what plant that was from. Just absolutely gorgeous the way it's spiralling around. More large palms, and then just look at the shape of those leaves there as they're silhouetted against the sunshine. And then these seed heads, I truly thought for one moment these were seed heads, but do you remember me saying that there were lots of art installations around, and they were the art installations. I think they'd gone slightly discoloured, got some mildew on them, or lichen was starting to develop, but we spotted some colourful red ones later on. And then we're in the arid greenhouse here with those cacti and the anthuriums as they're growing in the wild, and onto the pond area, these lily pads. Now my friend told me that I think every September they have a photo shoot in the botanical gardens, because the lily pads will take the weight of a baby that's about 9 months old. I might have got my facts wrong, but you can just imagine how cute a little baby would look sitting on that lily pad. And these exotic flowers, well, no, they're not. This is another one of the art installations, but you could truly believe that that was a natural plant hanging down from the ceiling. It's got that Spanish moss look about it. And what flower is this? To me, it looks like a lotus. Imagine that when it's gone dried out and got the holes where the seeds would have been. Lovely warm sunshine. And then we left the glass houses, and I must admit we did sit down for a while just to get over the heat. And then more of these art installations. These are giant ants making their way into the tree stump, and then a butterfly on the edge of the castle wall flapping its wings. We really did have a truly amazing weekend. And thank you so much for spending the weekend with me. Don't forget to look out for next week's video, and I'll talk you through some of the pieces that I found particularly inspirational and ideas I've got for how I could adapt those for my own future flower classes, or perhaps even flower arrangements that I make at home to enjoy for myself. That's all for me for now, and I'll see you again next time.